Coach Galasso is the head coach and offense coordinator at East Troy High School, which is in southeast Wisconsin. So, to kick things off, Coach, can you just share with the audience a little bit about your background and how you've ultimately gotten involved in your current role?
Yeah, sure. My background's, pretty unique, kind of unconventional way to get where I am. So, if I get long-winded here or want me to elaborate, feel free to stop me. So, I've been coaching for, about 15 years, private league teams, mostly high school, a little bit of college, and some youth stuff. But I'm originally from Central Ohio, Columbus, Ohio area. Was like most of us here, probably listening, multi-sport athlete growing up. Um, I was a little bit of a late developer physically. So actually in high school, I was a much better percussionist than I was football player. So that's actually how I got my college paid for. I went to school on a percussion scholarship. So went down to Kentucky, to do that. As soon as I graduated, moved kind of back to Ohio, immediately got into coaching. Was there for a little bit, and then moved to Southern California to coach for a little bit as well. And then in 2012, I actually got the opportunity to kind of transition into corporate marketing. That's what brought me to Wisconsin the first time. Met my wife here, continued coaching. And then, in 2015, I ended up moving to the South End, like Indiana area. And my schedule at that time, like really didn't allow for, any coaching. It was a big promotion, kind of in my corporate, goals at the time. But it's something I'm incredibly grateful for, right? Because I think most importantly during that time, what it reminded me is what my true purpose is. So, up until that point, I kind of coached, because I enjoyed it, and it's only what I knew. You know what I mean? It's like you only know what you know. So, but once I lost that aspect, in my life, I understood that no, this is my purpose, right? This is what I was created to do, to bring value to the world in this way. And so that really changed, how I started to view things. It seemed kind of the further I, pursued, my corporate, type of goals, the further off purpose I got. So, there's a great, side nugget, gentleman named Ken Coleman. If anyone's looking like, professional, dream job type stuff, he's an expert in that field, a good podcast to listen to. But he always talks about where your top skills and your top talents, and if you put them on an axis, finding where they intersect, and that's your sweet spot. So looking at it in that terms, right, the further I got here, right, the further I got away from my purpose. So it was kind of a long process. This was something that took 4 or 5 years for me to really identify and understand fully. It wasn't overnight to really see what I was being called to do. So in 2019, I left the corporate world. My wife and I moved back to Wisconsin, got back into coaching, understanding at this point there's, separating, paycheck and purpose, right? And one fuels the other. So, been a great last couple of years, here in Wisconsin. And then obviously, the next step, in my journey is obviously to pair those two together. So that's what I'm working on now, my next goal in life.
What have you learned being at all those different places in Southern California, in Ohio, as a coach?
Yeah, the most important thing when you're moving a lot, as I have, right, and you're always meeting new people, is just being authentic, right, and being yourself. It's real easy to try to fit into the crowd and be a people pleaser, but ultimately it's impossible. You can't please everybody, right? So staying true to yourself, I think, is really one of the biggest things in coaching in any sport.
We always talk about on this podcast pouring into your athletes and like really giving them everything that you have. What would you say would be like the most important thing to know as a young coach that would help you genuinely pour everything you have into your athletes?
Yeah, great question. And I think understanding, right, that we are humble servants, right? We are here to serve the students, in any type of teacher education setting. So, kind of understanding that and aligning everything you do to fit, that purpose, right? It's it's a me last attitude. I think, some people might lose sight of that, right? When we get into the competitive aspects of wins and losses and coaching and, and things of that nature. But, really building your philosophy around, your why, and understanding, right, each of your students' whys, right? Everybody's different. So really coming to it from, a humble servant type of background to really understand how you can provide value.
Definitely. And it's funny you bring up just knowing about your why, because the podcast that I just did with Coach Hines, he just talked about being purpose driven, and best thing you can do as a coach is just start with your why instead of like the what or the how. And that's going to drive the other things in life, especially when it comes to coaching. If you could go back to yourself like 15 years ago when you were just getting out of college and started coaching, what advice would you give yourself at that point in your career?
Really for any young coach, I look at it like really kind of the same thing that we preach to our players, right? So control the controllables, right? And as a coach, what we preach to our players in our program, is effort and attitude, right? Those are two things that you can control that have nothing to do with talent and ability. But what does that mean for new coaches, right? Because I think you can still look at it through that lens as well. One of which is like we talked about, being authentic to yourself, right, and who you are as a person. I like to look at Coach Prime is the big talking point right now, and I mean that's a dude that's just authentic as can be. Right now, you may or may not like it, but he is who he is. That's how he was as a player, and that's at least what we see on the outside. That's a man that's true to himself. In me, I would be worried if he wasn't that way, right? So being authentic, is a big part of that. I think too, for young coaches, pushing through, challenges, and at some point you're going to hit, and I don't know about hit, but you'll feel, imposter syndrome, right? That'll happen at some point. But I think, embracing those challenges and realizing that everybody was once a nobody, right? Everyone started somewhere. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. And just being a sponge, man, like learn as much as you can during that process, right? Ask questions, don't be afraid. And obviously that'll be in that growth mindset, get you to where you want to go. And kind of along with that, last thing here, I'll get off the soapbox, like be prepared, man. Holy cow. Like, I learned, one of my professors in college always said, like, 50% of life is just showing up, right? It's amazing. I feel, especially now in this day and age, right? Commitment, follow through, right? But that other 50% is what, so separates, the men from the boys, right? And everything in life, be prepared. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So, in football, what's that mean? Are you watching film, right? Are you prepared for your indies drills? Do you set up ahead of time, right? Are you the guy that shows up, late to practice and sets up his drill, during the first, couple minutes of your indie period, whatever it might be. Just be prepared and understand as a young coach that your level of preparation is going to be different than someone that's been doing this, 20, 30 years, right? The experience and the amount of time it takes to prepare is going to be different, right? If you have a ton of experience, right, you're probably not going to have to put in as much time to prepare to reach, that team goal or whatever you're striving for. Or, as a young guy, like you're going to have to work your butt off, right? It's going to be a lot of preparation if you're not, quite as experienced. So,
yeah. And I love how you talk about you don't have to be great when you start, but you have to start to be great. One of the guys that I follow actually in the marketing world, and it's funny you bring up your background, Gary V, he had winelibrary.com and he posted videos for years and years and just nobody followed him, but he kept on doing it. And look at him now. He's one of the biggest guys in the marketing world in business. And he has, I forget the name of his company.
Yeah. VaynerMedia.
Yeah. VaynerMedia. Yeah. So he's obviously done well for himself there. And I think that's a tactic that anybody can use in the world of coaching as an athlete or in the world of business, like we were just saying.
Yeah. And I mean, it's the only way we fail in life is if we quit. Right.
Yeah.
So when I look at things, I'm like, there's no such thing as failure. I might learn 10 or 12, different ways to not do something, right? But within every failure is an opportunity to learn something new.
Right.
So, that's, you're talking about Gary, making all these videos with, no followers and whatnot, but, trust the process and stick to the course, right? And good things will happen most likely.
And I mean, it sounds cliche because everybody preaches that, but it is true. I've had an opportunity to talk to a lot of guys. So,
Yeah.
just continuing at it and the lessons I've learned from my playing days and I've had a year of experience as a coach. Those experiences have helped me in my venture with this. It's cool to see just coaches spreading the knowledge on this type of platform.
And I think that's the coolest thing just about our little community. Yes, like we are all very driven and competitive and typically, alpha dog type mentality people. But at the same time, almost everyone in this community, just wants what's best for, the kids and for other coaches, and everyone's willing to share, and it makes everyone better, right? And elevates the level of play in our sport, and just the camaraderie and everything around it, I think is really special in our industry.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. Like at the end of the day, we're here to serve others. We're here to make the kids better and prepare them for life because football is the perfect microcosm, the perfect like early on in life for you to learn and help you grow when you face challenges in the future. So I 100% agree with that as well.
Yeah, you could not agree more. I think, now more than ever too, I think sports they play a huge role, because I think the development that you kind of were just talking about, I think there's less and less opportunities in kind of everyday society now for, our youth to be able to learn those skills. There's just been so much advancement in technology and stuff. I think a lot of what we've relied on, right, has kind of depersonalized, right, things in life. So, blame it, on this thing or whatever you want, but there's no way around it in sports, right? I mean, you can't whip out your cell phone on, 3rd and 4 and figure it out, right? You just got to do it,
Yeah.
and communicate, with your teammates, right, and get it done. So I think, sports is kind of one of the last, alleys or avenues, right, to, kind of develop those skills.
Any last words that you want to share with the audience today?
Uh, no, I mean, I just, enjoyed talking to you here. Hopefully, you guys, got some value out of this. I think, again, just, effort and attitude, like I said, being authentic to yourself, embracing challenges, especially this day and age, be prepared, not just in sports, but in everything you do in life. And good things will happen, right? Yeah, to use, the basketball terminology, you put the work in, ball don't lie, the ball
Yep.
don't lie, man. Do
Yeah.
the work, good things will happen.
There we go. Perfect way to end this. So thanks again, coach.